Are you invested in knowing about net zero companies? Perhaps you've even invested in some of them because of their seemingly noble cause of being environmentally friendly while being profitable. Well, you might want to pay attention because the shocking truth is that many of these investments are losing value faster than you can say environmental sustainability. It's no secret that net zero investments have been all the rage in recent years. But what does that mean exactly? The term net zero refers to a state where the carbon emissions produced is of an equal amount to or less than the amount of carbon that gets removed from the atmosphere. Sounds great, right? Which is why net zero companies are becoming increasingly popular, especially as awareness about climate change grows and consumers demand more sustainable practices from businesses. But there's a catch. Not all net zero companies are created equal. Many of these companies have jumped on the bandwagon without actually making significant strides towards reducing their carbon footprint. Instead, they rely on carbon offsets or other questionable methods to reach their net zero status. Promising a sustainable future and hefty returns, many investors jumped on board without truly understanding what they were investing in. But now, we're starting to see the harsh reality, which is a collapse of value that has left many wondering if everything involving net zero was all just a mirage. And in this video, we'll dig deep into the whole picture. To start with, here's a basic fact. When a company says its product is carbon neutral, it often means they've bought a credit from a market that's not really regulated. So if a clothing brand ends up emitting a ton of carbon while making their shoes, they can just buy a 1-ton carbon credit to balance it out. This way, they get to say their shoes are carbon neutral. Now, this whole carbon credit market is mostly run by two big non-profit groups, namely Vera in Washington, D.C., and Gold Standard in Geneva, Switzerland. But these organizations aren't the ones actually pulling carbon out of the air. What they do is check out what other companies or projects are doing. Basically, if your company can show Vera or Gold Standard that you've either removed carbon in the atmosphere or stopped it from getting released, they'll give you a verified carbon credit. But you can't just knock on their door and ask to be audited. Both Vera and Gold Standard have an application process that companies must go through first. That's separate from the whole process they have to go through to get their carbon units verified. And yep, it involves some fees. If you run a company that successfully reduces carbon emissions and these organizations can verify it, paying the associated fees becomes a worthwhile investment. After all, you can sell your carbon credits at a higher price to other businesses who can't be audited for various reasons but are seeking to market their products as carbon neutral. But why go through all that? There are 3 key reasons. And they're the same reasons why net zero companies are performing abysmally now. Number 1, it aimed to take advantage of the latest investment trends. So there's this thing called ESG investing. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. Basically, it's about putting money into companies that are doing good things for the planet and its people, and that are also run well. Investors do it because 1, they believe it will make them more money in the long run. And 2, it makes investors feel good to back businesses that are doing the right thing. The buzz really started when asset managers rolled out mutual and index funds stamped with their own ESG certifications, turning heads in boardrooms all over the US. What's more, getting a spot in these ESG indices turned out to be easier than expected. Corporate bigwigs realized getting their company on the ESG index could bump up their company's stock price and draw in more investors. Initially, ESG funds seemed promising, but in the end, the funds that were top-rated for sustainability didn't do any better than those at the bottom of the list. Ultimately, if purchasing carbon credits to achieve carbon neutrality didn't really enhance a company's appeal to investors, then it doesn't make sense for the company to invest in this voluntary expense. If you want to become government rich, then make sure to subscribe for more insightful videos like this one. They'll inspire you to grow as a person, and they're free. Number 2, the presence of multiple players, which slowed down regulations. The ecosystem of carbon credits involves more than just the companies that make and utilize them, along with the nonprofits overseeing this voluntary market. Hedge funds have also entered the scene, trading carbon credits in unregulated private markets. Additionally, trading firms have ventured into this domain, aiming to capitalize on price fluctuations. However, their endeavors have led to substantial financial losses, with the value of voluntary carbon credits plummeting from a peak of $19 in January 2022 to merely $1.77 by September 2023. Simply put, a staggering decline of over 90% within just 18 months. The whole buzz around voluntary markets kicked off because companies liked the idea of calling the shots themselves. They figured out that by using voluntary carbon offsets priced at $19 a ton to become carbon neutral, they could dodge the bullet of having to buy mandatory carbon credits costing $80 a ton. So, voluntarily going for carbon neutrality turned out to be way cheaper. This savvy move led companies to hype up their green efforts big time. They started telling everyone how they were saving the planet with their initiatives, painting themselves as eco-heroes. But some of their claims were a bit too good to be true and didn't quite hold up under scrutiny. And people eventually caught up to that. Number 3. It didn't work as expected. The study from Cambridge University looked into 40 projects approved by Vera, and researchers discovered that around 94% of the carbon credits sold didn't actually remove carbon from the atmosphere. However, companies still called their high-emissions products carbon neutral. What's more, the groups behind these carbon credits are run as nonprofits. They don't take donations, but they need money to keep going. How? They make their cash from fees charged to companies that want to register carbon credits. So they're incentivized to allow the creation of as many credits as they can. As mentioned earlier, carbon removal isn't about machines pulling carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Most carbon credits involve rainforests. For Vera in particular, the go-to move for churning out these voluntary carbon credits was to buy up bits of the Amazon and prevent the cutting of trees. The idea was that no logging means the carbon stays locked in the trees. Sure, fighting deforestation sounds great, right? But the Cambridge report pointed out that a lot of the trees on land set aside were probably never going to be chopped down anyway. The land was too remote and too hard to get to, which made it useless for companies. Therefore, they were sold cheap. The report really turned some heads, especially among regulators. And suddenly, everyone was zooming in on how carbon-neutral labels were being used by companies. Coincidentally, Vera's CEO, who had been running the show at the carbon credit certification place for 15 years, decided to step down, though the company says it's for totally different reasons. Because of all this, trading firms ended up in a tight spot. And they soon had to admit that their carbon credits were basically worth zip because companies weren't interested in buying them anymore. And someone from the key players even mentioned she's never seen anything like this total crash in some parts of the voluntary carbon credit market before. And if you found this video useful, then you'll love these. And make sure to subscribe and leave a comment saying, "I subscribed," and we will personally reply to your comment.